Hello. Hello and welcome to the latest VEST webinar series. I'm John Forster, your moderator for today's webinar session, where we'll be featuring HyDraw CAD 2022 configured with the new Vault plugin. Today's webinar will last approximately 45 minutes, and you'll be able to submit questions or comments at any time during today's session. Please post in the questions section located in your webinar control panel. Questions will be answered as they are posted, and we'll try to address them in the last 5 to 10 minutes of the webinar if we're able. Note that today's session is being recorded and that the audio is muted for all attendees. We'll send a replay out afterwards. You'll get an email on that. If you experience any technical issues, please use the chat window to alert our support staff. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's webinar session with Frank Newsom. Frank is one of VEST diagramming product owners and is responsible for scope and delivery of the HyDraw CAD product line. So Frank, thanks for joining us.
Alrighty, thank you, John. Thank you to everybody attending today's webinar. So let me kind of jump in here. So today we will be taking a look at HyDraw CAD 2022 and its integration with Vault. So this has been a recent kind of request from a lot of our users that we integrate with Vault. So a little bit about HyDraw CAD. It's built on the AutoCAD OEM platform. So basically what you're going to get is you're going to get a seat of AutoCAD as well as HyDraw CAD functionality. Now, since it's built on AutoCAD OEM, it did not come with that Vault integration built in like a regular seat of AutoCAD. So we had to build this up from scratch. So we did recently offer this beta for Vault, and it was applicable to users with Vault 2023, Vault Professional. So a prerequisite for installing it, your end users must have the Vault Professional 2023 client installed on their machine as well. So you'll notice I have it installed here on my machine. So when we do release this, which it's looking like it's going to be released with our next version, HyDraw CAD 2024, in late November. It will also be applicable to Vault 2023, and we will be later on implementing some integration with Vault 2024, because that is the latest version. So we are going to start building our schematic here. So I am going to show kind of just the basics of HyDraw CAD, and then we'll kind of get into that Vault about halfway through. So we are going to start with some stackable valves today. And I'm going to bring in a directional control valve from my Library Explorer on the left. Now this Library Explorer, this is all coming from my library stored on my system. We do have options for an Access database, which is the default, or a SQL database, which is better for shared users. If it relies on a server and you want to share your library, share your symbols, all of your data, it's best to use SQL. And we have steps if you are interested in utilizing SQL, then just send us an email to HyDraw support and we will help you migrate. So now I've kind of brought in our directional control valve. I'm going to assign it some data. So I'm going to use this fetch from library, and I'm going to search from fluidpowertools.com, which is our online database of OEM manufactured components. So let's go ahead and let's do a DG4V-3. So I select my component and all of this data comes from our database. So you'll notice that we do give partial model codes. So you'll notice these kind of stars within the model code. So if you wanted to, you could come into your data sheets that are also linked, and you could find the full model code, type it in, and if you would like, you can actually also save this to your library. We have a lot of people who actually build up their library utilizing Fluid Power Tools and kind of filling in this information, making their own library of personalized custom symbols and custom data as they need. Utilizing Fluid Power Tools as that starting point. So not only can you kind of search from this fetch from library, we do have a search from Fluid Power Tools here, in which case, say you know the model code. So I know one off the top of my head, ZW2SR, and we'll do a search, and we'll have some stackable flow control valves that we can bring in from HyDraw. And we'll select this one. As long as we have a DO3, make sure we have our same interface here. And we can click to place it here within the drawing. Now I also have another valve I'm looking at, VOSL/ML. And this should be a counterbalance valve. I believe it's this one. And make sure we have all our DO3s. Didn't want to pick the DO5 here at the top. So we have our stackable valves. Let me go into our circuit tab, and I can actually use the stack command. So to run the stack command, we just click the stack command, and we select our valves that we want to stack, hit enter on the keyboard, and it's going to ask us a direction. So if we want them to stack below the top symbol, all of these bottom valves will kind of align up to our top valve, or we can say, no, we want everything to align to this bottom valve. I have no preference, but we'll do the top valve. So now all our valves are stacked. And so every time we move these valves within the drawing, the stack stays, stacked. It's its own entity. Now these items are going to be utilized and kind of called out separately within the parts list, seeing as they have separate item IDs. So there's no worries about that. And you can always unstack using the unstack option, just in case you want to, say, change the order of your stack here. Okay, so we have one more valve that we're going to do here. And it should be a Bosch valve, yep. We will bring him in here. And we're going to place him right here. And we're going to go ahead and do a flip. That way he is aligned correctly within our drawing. Okay, so a little bit about the circuit that I'm going to be making today. So this circuit is used in paper manufacturing. So it's used to apply gloss to paper as it's kind of taken through the manufacturing process. It allows it to be, it appears more white, and it allows it for printing to be done on the paper. I did find this on the internet, so this is not an original design or anything, but I thought it was a very interesting application, so I figured let's make it here today. And of course, we'll show how it can be used in Vault. So I didn't have a power unit that I had to design with this. So for the sake of this webinar, we'll just say that our power unit is on the first sheet and this is our second sheet. So let me go ahead and make our connection. And within the last version of HyDraw CAD, we actually implemented a new way to kind of create jumping references. So jumping references are usually used on second sheet, kind of jump between sheets. So I can go and select jumping reference, and we actually have this free end option now. So if I select free end, I can select my connection here, and we'll call it the power unit jumping reference, and it goes to sheet 1. Select OK, and now we have our jumping reference here within our drawing. And we'll be doing the same kind of for our reservoir and our drain lines. This is a little too long. Reservoir on page 1. And our drain. So you may notice me using the stretch command. So there's a couple reasons why I use the stretch command rather than just grabbing our AutoCAD lines here. So when we grab our AutoCAD lines, they kind of start to become diagonal, and we do have this reset connection command, which will allow me to, reinstate those 90-degree bends, but stretch will kind of keep those intact as we kind of create our lines and we move them around, which is much easier than typing in reset connection every time on the command line. Alrighty, so then we are going to have a tank line down here. And we're going to need our cylinders for our applicator beam. Do a copy selection. And just for artistic purposes, we'll kind of give them a little rotation. So I didn't select my balloons. So within HyDraw CAD, our balloons are actually kind of, when you select the item ID, it'll also select the symbol. For some reason, the balloon is not also included in that selection. So you'll just have to make sure that you always select that balloon when you're going to do something like a rotate, and then it'll adjust appropriately. And we're going to want some hoses in here to connect to our cylinders. So since we do have the AutoCAD OEM platform, we kind of have these OSNAP options that you'll see me kind of utilizing here. Allows me to kind of link up and make sure that I'm directly under our connection points here. So I just hover over, kind of set my reference and follow that dotted green line down. And now we can start making some more connections. So one other handy tool that I always use is the spacebar command. So when we make our connections with auto connect on, it does terminate the command after you've kind of finished making it. So if you use the spacebar, it's very handy to just repeat the last command and just kind of make those connections. That way you don't have to always bring your mouse up to the connection, back down, all that stuff. Make some adjustments here. Stretch our line down. Make sure this is nice and neat. Okay, I don't know why that one's not working with me here. Okay, we'll leave it as it is. So now we've kind of got our pretty much our basic what we're starting with here. We'll say that our pressure control valve here, or pressure reducing valve, I should say, this is a PLC kind of operated valve. So our pilot line here, I'm going to take up, and I'm actually going to give this a jumping reference. So I am not going to kind of show the PLC control, but within the schematic, basically this PLC is going to control how much pressure is going to go through this valve, and it's going to go up and service these cylinders. There's also kind of an alarm in case we get too much pressure. That way we can kind of service this circuit as we need. And that's kind of given as a pressure transducer, and then it kind of sets off that alarm. Okay. So I am going to exclude our cylinders just because I don't have any data kind of assigned to those. So I can just select both of them, and then this exclude from parts list option is available, and I can exclude both of them. Now our hoses, I have not assigned any data because I pulled from our library as the blank symbol. So I do have some data if I use this fetch from library. I have some data within my local database that I have defined. It's a Parker hose, and I can assign that from my database. Now there isn't any hose data within Fluid Power Tools, so that's kind of one of those advantages of having your own library. You can come in here and define, something that maybe we don't have, or if, say, there's a valve that you're thinking of, maybe we should have it, send us an email. We'll add it. We're always looking, always updating our database full of components. So now this is a good time to use our copy properties command, just because I don't want to sit here and go through the fetch from library 4 times. So I'll select our source symbol, select our destination symbols, hit enter, and it's going to ask me any properties that I want to bring over. I'll just select OK because I want all of them. And now all of our Parker hoses are pulled over into our hoses. So we've kind of got a good start on our diagram here, but before we put it into our PDM system, we need to at least create a bill of materials, kind of get a good start on this. So let's come in here and select our parts list. And it's going to ask me to select the symbols. I'm just going to include everything within the drawing. So I'm going to type in all, hit enter. And I'm going to exclude our hoses because I'll actually include a hose assembly list since I actually have those symbols within this drawing. And it'll just be better to kind of group those all together in their own area with their own format. So we'll hit next, and all of the information from our parts is displayed here. I can move items up and down, remove them as I see fit, but I'm just going to insert it up in the top left where we've got a little bit of room. And we'll kind of adjust the size here, make sure it fits within our title block. And we can run our hose assembly list. So I've got these 4. And I'm going to follow my default format. And in here, I've actually added an inner diameter and an outer diameter. So within our library manager, I'm going to show that real quick. We can actually come into our components tab within the library manager, and we can define properties. So these properties, let me find our inner diameter. We can assign it to a component type. So in here, I've only assigned it to the hose. And so in here, you can assign whether it's what data type. The unit category, I defined it as unitless just because there are times where it was rounding, I noticed. So that is something that we plan to address to kind of address that rounding issue that I've noticed within our library manager. Anyways, so I've added those within the property list for the hoses, and I've also added them within our hose assembly list. So let me go ahead and insert this. In our hose assembly list, all of our lists can be adjusted within the options. And I will show that here in a sec once I've kind of adjusted this to fit. So let me show the options. So up here in the circuit tab, we have our options, and it's going to be located within our application settings and in lists and charts. So in here, we can define all of our lists, and we can assign what properties are included. We can add to the list of properties, move items up and down, delete them as we see fit. And the hose assembly is no different. You can add your property names, the alignment, the width, everything. So if there's a standard, template size for your lists, you can define that right in your options. So I do also want to include a small actuation chart. So I'm going to define some solenoid information for this solenoid here. And when this solenoid is activated, it's actually going to extend our cylinders here a little bit. So we're going to assign it to solenoid 1. S1 is energized when it's extending. And we can actually come in, run this actuation chart, hit enter. We do want to use our item ID, and we'll just insert it right above our directional control valve. And last but not least, we have to edit our title block. So we said this was sheet 2. Title is going to be our applicator beam circuit. Name of the company, Best. and drawn by yours truly. And we'll select OK, kind of update our title block. So now we are good to go to kind of put this into Vault. So let's come to our Vault tab. And I've already gone ahead and logged in just because that does take a minute or two, since HyDraw CAD does connect to Vault through the actual client app, and then that connects to the server. So that's a way, that's kind of what takes a minute when you do log in. So since our drawing was kind of just made here in HyDraw CAD, there isn't a copy of it within Vault, so we'll have to go ahead and check it in here. And let's, of course, we want to save it. And we'll put it in webinars, HyDraw CAD. Oh, it is September. Aha. And applicator beam. Circuit. And we'll hit save. And so now HyDraw CAD is going to link up to the Vault, and it is going to check that in, and it's going to be our version 1, revision 1 for this drawing. And we want to place it in our engineering projects folder within the Vault. And we don't want to keep it checked out. We can close the file and delete any working copies, so we wouldn't have any copies of this file within our system. And we also can include any comments, but since this is just the first version, we'll just click OK. Oh. Okay, let's see if that, I'm not sure what happened there. Let's see if it did check it in. Oh, we have a HyDraw crash. Okay. Let's open HyDraw again. Okay, we have our applicator beam circuit, so good thing we saved. And we'll go into Vault and we'll actually log in. While I wait, let me see if we have any questions. All right, so I have a question. Where does the saved part go? I'm assuming this was earlier on when we were saving our components to the library. So that would actually go into your local library. So that would be stored within that database. Is this applicable to Vault 2023? Yes. And does Vault need to be active or started for the interface to work? As you mentioned, that is using the standalone client. So while you use HyDraw CAD, it does not need to be started. Just has to be installed on your system, and it'll actually connect through there. Okay. Not seeing my symbols. Try my cloud license. Okay. All fixed. For some reason, my license dropped. Okay, so let's go back to Vault. So we've got our drawing here. Let's go ahead and check it in. And now it is checked into our Vault. So now it's going to let me know that we're working on the vaulted copy of this located within my system. Select OK. And so within HyDraw CAD now, you can actually change the category, change the state, get a previous revision, as well as revise. So first of all, let's change this to an engineering drawing, since this is an engineering drawing. And since this isn't checked out, the checkout option is available, and this is a read-only option. So you'll notice this little lock here in our drawing navigation. It is a read-only file, and it will pretty much just save to the local file within your system. In order to make changes to the drawing in the vault, you'll have to check it out. Before we do that, I would like to change the state. So I'm going to change our state to for review. And so now within the vault, the state of this drawing, if I kind of come in and we refresh, there it is. So this drawing is now in our for review state with revision A. And the comment was also added all within HyDraw. So all of these states, all of these categories that I'm showing, these are kind of installed with the base setup for Vault. You as an organization can set up different categories, different states, different revision schemes. All of these can all be set up within Vault and should hand over to HyDraw CAD based on your settings within the Vault. So as a hypothetical, let's say we got the sign off after the review, and we'll change the state to released. We're all good to go. It's ready to manufacture. Now, that would be nice, but this is not a perfect world. So let's be realistic and let's kind of go back to our work in progress state, and let's do a checkout. So our file has unsaved changes. So basically this is going to overwrite data from the Vault, and it's going to kind of take that drawing that exists within Vault, update it within your system before you check out. That way you have the latest changes within the drawing. And so now we're actually going to add a backup oil supply that is going to kind of allow us to service this circuit as well. Let's see a question. How do you align a valve stack to a multi-station manifold? In that case, we don't have that solution completely figured out, but the best way would be to kind of take your stack here, grab by the grip point, and just align it using our OSNAP commands on, say, your first station, your second station on that manifold. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we're going to add our backup oil supply, like I mentioned. So we are going to need a shuttle valve within that backup oil supply. And I'm going to have to get rid of this connection just so that we can kind of incorporate this properly. And we are going to use the same directional control valve. So let me go ahead and use copy and paste this one over here because we will actually have a second stack. And you'll notice that our item ID here is now highlighted red. So we're going to have to come back and update this parts list. So I'll kind of show that a little bit later once we've kind of finished inserting all of our valves and we've got our schematic kind of finished. And I can show you that all of this information is saved with the file in Vault. So you can kind of see that separate parts list. And we're going to bring in this guy. And we're going to stack them. Alrighty, so now we can continue to make our connections. P comes here. Our B port actually is blocked in this case. And our T, of course, goes to our tank line. And our A here goes to P1 within our shuttle valve. And it actually also includes connection to our separate oil supply. Oil supply 2 from page 1. Okay, so now let's kind of go in and update our parts list here. So we just need to select the table, right click, and we can select update parts list. And now our item ID is adjusted there. So you will notice that our parts list didn't grow necessarily because we did add a couple items. So these parts lists are, you select which items are within them, and then those items, as they change, those entries will change. We cannot add to a selected set of items that are included within a parts list within the current scope of HyDraw CAD. So I am going to kind of show how we can create kind of a parts list for the second set of items. So we'll select these 3 items that we added, hit enter, and we do want the same format. And oh, I didn't select anything for my shuttle valve, so let me come in here real quick and find something on Fluid Power Tools that I can assign. Let's do this Eaton valve. And we will run our parts list again on these 3 items. And we'll go ahead and insert it down here. Now, as I look through all of the requested features, I do kind of set what kind of gets set in the next versions. I see some very interesting, very nice suggestions. So keep those coming. As the product goes along, we really do appreciate those recommendations. And one of them, the reason I bring this up, is actually to include a title for our parts list, which is something that you don't always think of, but it is mandatory. So I kind of want to show, you can add a title to your tables here. All it takes is kind of coming in and doing a table edit. HyDraw CAD has frozen. Okay, well, that could be a problem. I'll kind of give it a second and maybe it'll come back up. In the meantime, I can show you if we refresh within Vault, you'll notice that revision was made, revision B, and it's now a work in progress. Let us restart HyDraw. I don't know what's going on with it today. Just decided to be messy. I see a question in here, so we can. Okay, very good question. So the question is, as you do not have the Vault client active, is there or will there be a way inside HyDraw to see the current state of the drawing and the current revision or even version? So let me kind of show. This drawing. So let me kind of show our open dialog that we have within HyDraw. So if I select Vault and I log in again, state in the title block update instantaneous when a state change is carried out? As I noticed the drawing is reopened, then this is done. Very good questions. Okay, so let me kind of show our open dialog. And within here, you can open, and in here you can actually see the revision, the state, whether it's checked in, any comments, and this all gets pulled from Vault. So this would kind of answer your question that within HyDraw, you just have to select this open to kind of see this. So let's open this one. And it looks like it may not have saved my changes. So let me check this file out. And we can redo those real quick. Create our stack. Make our connections here. And insert our shuttle valve. And our jumping reference. Okay, and we'll go ahead and make our second parts list. Real quick, I won't add a title this time since it didn't like that the first time. But essentially all you'll have to do is double click and run the table editor. Let me double check on our questions here. So one question was, and does the state in the title block update instantaneous when a state change is carried out? Currently no, but within Vault, if we want, we can select this revision table, and I can insert this directly within my drawing, and what information you display within your revision table is actually within our options. So within our options here, you can select the column header and which property is actually linked to it. So things like the description, the date it was checked in, things like that. You also can do, the number of rows, populate information using the latest versions or the latest release date information, as well as any certain filters within your revisions. So your secondary, tertiary types of revisions. You also can set an automatic login. So every time you open HyDraw, you don't have to run this login command just to log into Vault. So let me see if we have any other questions. So can the parts list be linked to an item so we can see the components within the BOM of the item? So yes, so it's linked to The parts list is utilizing the information that is actually input to our property manager here on the right. Yes, so let me go ahead and check this file back in. Select OK. And now we have, let's check this back out because we did not update our parts list. If there are any other questions, please do send them in the chat. This was probably going to be pretty much towards the end of our presentation here. HyDrawCAD's really thinking today. Okay, I am not seeing any other questions. So if you guys are interested in this Vault beta, please do send us an email to HyDrawSupport@vestusa.com. Or if you're interested in Vault, maybe you don't use Vault 2023, maybe you're on Vault 2024, we would love to know that information. If you guys want to see it kind of in action, maybe a small demo of it, send us an email, we'll work with you. If you guys have any other questions or anything following this webinar, also send an email. But I think since HyDraw is really thinking today, I think I'm going to turn it back over to John.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Yeah, and I just wanted to follow up with what Frank just said. We have a survey that'll come up afterwards, and some of those things on there's an open question on what your what type of Autodesk Vault server you have and things like that. So you can put some of that in there as well. So again, I'd like to thank Frank for delivering today's product demonstration. I know we had a few glitches and you handled them beautifully. A lot of great questions, so thank you for that. Mention the survey, it'll be at the conclusion of the webinar, and also tomorrow you'll receive an email containing a link to view a replay of today's session, and feel free to also share this link with your colleagues. And then links to upcoming webinars will also be included in that same email. So as you can see on the screen, we have our webinar schedule up, and next week we'll be conducting a topical webinar, 2 sessions demonstrating a manifold design workflow from all the way from schematic creation to manifold block design completely in a web browser. And we'll be showcasing our low-cost NetScheme and NetBlock applications with that. So I wanted to point out that the 2 sessions are exactly the same, just at different times. So there was a little confusion. I noticed people signing up for both. I don't want you to be disappointed. They cover basically the same material, just different audiences. So again, thank you, Frank, and thank you all for attending today's session, and we wish you a pleasant and safe day. Thank you.